Somebody asked me if I could talk more about when I had really bad anxiety and panic and OCD and I lost my period for 3 years. And I thought I would make a video in case it would be helpful for more people. So, hi, I'm Lily Seiss. I'm an anxiety coach, a registered three principles practitioner. And before this, I was a school psychologist for 13 years. And the time I stepped down, I was the lead school psychologist in my district in Los Angeles, California. And I think more importantly, I struggled pretty severely with anxiety, panic, and OCD. At the height of it, it was like a 7 year struggle with pretty severe panic, anxiety, OCD, and driving anxiety. But about mental health and eating disorders and losing my period, I struggled with bulimia and restrictive eating from 14 to 19. And then when I was 19, I recovered, I healed. I had a really good relationship with food and my body. I met an amazing man when I was 20. We got married when I was 24, and I had a baby right away. And in those early days of our marriage and having a baby, there was a lot of stress. I was also breastfeeding, and I got pretty thin. Probably, I have a set range that I've been at since I was 20. I'm 41 now. And I got to the lower end of that. So, like 5 pounds thinner than I'd ever been, even with my eating disorder. And it wasn't really intentional. As I said, just stress, breastfeeding. But people were like, oh my God, you're so thin. You know, I'm also tall, 5'9", so I think it was like more drastic. And it felt temporary because, I don't know, it just did. So I was at this very thin place for a little bit, and then I stopped breastfeeding and, went back up those 5 or 7 pounds. And it was so tough. I went back to my old therapist who I loved, who was my first therapist. And I was a mess. Like, there was a lot of stuff also going on. I don't know if I was training for a marathon during that time. Whatever. I kind of got activated into thinking about my body and food. And it was hard to just kind of return to that more like normal range. And I went to CrossFit. I was really kind of still not wanting to diet, but I was thinking about my weight, probably did start restricting what I was eating. Went to CrossFit, and I had heard about like the paleo diet, and I didn't want to do it. But they had this big mural on the wall, and it was like, I kept hearing about it. And so then one day I read a paleo book, and my daughter was 2 at this time. I had been very intentional about the food that I was going to feed her. I was a vegetarian, but I looked into would I introduce meat, and I wanted to do it um, from animals that, had been raised organically and pasture raised and all this stuff. So when I read these paleo books, and they talked about how the cause of like physical and mental disease was this like Western diet and bringing in grains and sugar and all this stuff, I was like hooked, because before this I had struggled with health anxiety, and it wasn't called that then. It was like hypochondria, but what I struggled with that, and just this desire. It felt like my daughter was this blank slate, and I wanted to raise her as healthy as she could be. I didn't want her to have an eating disorder. I didn't want her to suffer at all, and it felt like this blank slate. So when I read these paleo books, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. Yes. And I took such a deep dive, and I'm somewhere on the spectrum. I have a diagnosis of ADHD, but I can definitely get like hyper focused. Riff, that's on me. No, because it's the computer. I can get hyper focused, and that's what I did. Just like extreme hyper focus on paleo, on primal, on like clean living. Because it went way beyond just the food that we were eating. It was like, oh my God, just toxins were everywhere. And I know that there is some like not great stuff in some stuff, but like beauty products, cleaning products, cookware, plastic, bedding, clothing. Oh my gosh, just on and on and on. So it just seemed like the world seemed really scary, because it seemed like there were all these things that could harm my daughter, make her unhealthy. And on the other hand, I also didn't want her to get an eating disorder. To me, I felt like it'd be actually worse if she developed anorexia. Like, I didn't want her to have an issue with food. But at the same time, we'd go to these like preschool parties and there'd be pizza and cake. And I just was like, I just saw those as the worst things, but I didn't always want to have her bring her own food and then she'd have a food issue. Um, I was just, there seemed like so many scary things in the world, like Wi Fi and cell phones. And I wanted her to be as safe and as healthy as possible. And sometimes it felt like everyone else was out to get me. They weren't. And so I took a deep dive, deep years and years. I also heard about zero waste during this time, and I'm like, yes, for the environment, I want all my waste to fit in like a little ball jar. Um, and I think I could have like done it all. It was just hard to also just be social. But there was one summer where I was staying with my sister, and she was so kind. I'd bring these like giant glass containers out to pizza. I'd bring my own. I bought everything from the farmer's market. All of our meat was from a place that was blessed in a Native American blessing ceremony. I would bring back the containers that the berries were in, and all of this can be good. Like if you do this with ease, great. When I would see people in their homes using Ziploc, my stomach would hurt. I would never say anything, but like if we went out to sushi and they served miso soup in a plastic bowl, I would just be filled with dread. Like, oh my God, it's heat and the plastic. We very, very rarely went out to eat. Never ever ordered in. I made everything from scratch. There was one point I made definitely all our food, and everything was from the farmer's market in reusable bags, organic, biodynamic, pasture raised. Where was I going with this? Oh, but I also made our own cleaning supplies, our own beauty products. I didn't wear makeup for like a year, just as an experiment. And all of this can be well and good, but I obsessed about it. And as I said, then I'd like go to be social or we'd do things, and it just felt like sometimes I brought my own food everywhere, actually. We once went hiking with a family when my daughter was in preschool. And I was like, I'll be in charge of the food. Like it just took all the fun out of it. I just obsessed. There was so much noise in my head, but about my period. So I started CrossFit, kind of got into the paleo diet, and then I did feel like maybe my weight had increased. And so I went on Weight Watchers. My weight was actually low that I like couldn't go in putting my weight in, but I was like, I'm doing Weight Watchers. So it was in probably 2010 that I started paleo. This like July, August 2010. And then right around January, I started Weight Watchers. And I remember because we went out of town, we were going sledding with some families at my daughter's preschool. And it was like January, February 2011. I was supposed to get my period and I didn't. It didn't show up. You know, and I, of course, thought it was like cancer. And I was at a healthy weight, healthy, normal in quotes. I was not underweight. I was probably like 5 pounds heavier than I'm at now, which is, I'm very healthy now. And so I went to the gynecologist and they did like an internal ultrasound and like I had no follicles. It was just kind of strange. So then it set me on a path to get my period back. And I thought, oh, I need to eat healthier, like paleo, I'll go back to paleo. And I would just paleo harder. Chris Kresser had this like healthy baby code. I don't know when I started doing that, but I incorporated a lot of like very ancient healing foods like liver and raw milk and raw dairy. And I mean, I followed his code. I ate all the stuff. I can't remember. I know there was pasture-raised eggs and probably healthy leafy greens. And again, everything was organic. Everything was as raw and as healthy as I could get it. And I would stick with things and then it wouldn't work. And then I would kind of biohack and I would try, maybe I need to eat more fat. Like I'd read someone else's book and then I'd think, oh, my ratios needed to be like a lot more fat. That was a tough time because I remember, I don't know, I couldn't eat any more protein and then it was just all fat and it was really tough. And I went to like a kid's birthday party and there was just pizza and all I could eat was olives. It was shitty. I also tried like cold therapy. And I remember I hate being cold, but I'd sit with like the air conditioning in the car, like blasting me and try to do that. I tried so many versions of like paleo and primal. Um, and I tried acupuncture a lot. I've loved acupuncture. I've loved my acupuncturists. I had one time when I saw these other acupuncturists who were also lovely, and they hooked up the needles to like electricity. I did that for three times a week. I did it a lot. I saw healers. I also thought I definitely need to like work on my anxiety because during this time my anxiety was the worst it had ever been. I started having panic attacks um, and severe driving anxiety. And all this time I'm just like frantically trying to get my period back. I tried meditation. I became trained in Vedic meditation. And as I was a school psychologist, I'm like, I got certified to teach meditation and mindfulness. And then later yoga. I just kept trying and trying and trying. Uh, and I also tried Western medicine. I tried progesterone, that like progesterone challenge. I didn't get my period. Um, and then I did think, well, maybe I needed to go to less CrossFit. Pretty much, I think I did that right away. I loved CrossFit, but I'd go, but I just try to do the gentle workouts. Oh my God. I mean, I did so many things. I did this like Mayan abdominal massage. Somebody came over and taught me how to do it. And then I do this massage and I put castor oil packs. Um, I mean, I tried everything to get my period back. So many things in this time to get my period back, to heal my anxiety. But so I didn't get my period for 3 years. Sometimes I'd get it like once and then it would never come back. But I wanted to have another baby too. And so it was 3 years. And then I did the progesterone challenge again and failed that. You take progesterone and it didn't work. And so then my doctor ran my blood work and my hormones were in the post-menopausal range. And at this time, I don't know, I was like 31, post-menopausal. So I had an MRI done and everything was normal. And I came back and I put into Google like failed progesterone challenge, postmenopausal range, and up popped this woman's blog about hypothalamic amenorrhea when you lose your period. But she wasn't underweight. So it wasn't like she didn't get her period because she was restricting what she was eating or she was underweight. It was like this obsession with like dieting and health. And it wasn't so much like the severe like health anxiety OCD that I had, but it was more like just really trying to eat perfectly and diet. But she was at like a normal weight and she lost her period. And it was like, oh my God, that was me. Like it just clicked. And I don't know, I clicked a few things and I came across more people that experienced that too. This obsession with like dieting and health, and they lost their period. And I knew that was me. This is it. I'd never heard about it before. And they had recommended, I think this woman did like the mini mod guidelines. And this was, 10 years ago or 9.5 years ago. As I'm recording this, it's December 8th, 2022. So this was like 2013 or 14. Must have been 2013. And so in the mini mod guidelines, you stopped all activity, like no activity, and you ate a minimum, I can't remember, of 2,500 calories or something. It seemed so scary, but I'm like, I just knew. I felt like that's it. And so I just was in. And I remember I called my CrossFit coach because I'd still been going to CrossFit and I loved the community aspect. And so I said, I'm going to stop CrossFit completely. I'm not going to exercise at all. I remember like crying on my porch and being so scared, but knowing like, I just want to jump right in. I'm going to do it. I didn't even walk the dog. Like all I did was go to work and I just lie on the couch. And I also called my sister and I asked if she'd kind of help hold me accountable. And I was already eating a lot of calories. Like the number didn't matter, but I knew I wanted to like have more freedom. So at first I did start incorporating like calories from like quinoa. Oh, because sometimes I would like do super low carb, all that stuff. So I tried to like up my calories like healthy. And then I just had fun. I like would go to Foster Freeze and I ate a lot of food. And I did a deep dive into like debunking the paleo myth. So I curated my social media feeds. I stopped following any Fitspiration, any paleo, any primal, and that was my whole life. Like all I had was paleo books, I had paleo podcasts. I could have like memorized. I did memorize all that. I just obsessively listened. Switched it over. I really started following people that were my size and bigger. Um, like at this time, it was like Carolyn Dooner, who was the Fuck It Diet. She didn't even have a book now. I know sometimes her stuff's a little strange then, but she had a podcast, I think, and but she also had like a Facebook group. So the Fuck It Diet, just really dove deep into that. There was like Summer Inanen, Christy Harrison. There was other people that like I started listening to, kind of health at every size stuff, body neutrality, debunking paleo myths. There was like some other guys in there. So I kind of really took a deep dive into like food freedom and beyond even intuitive eating, because intuitive eating is great, but there was a time when it kind of became like the hunger and the fullness diet. So I embraced that, and it was really helpful. And also there at that time, the mini mod stuff, there was like a whole forum, and that the forum saved me, because there was a couple weeks in, it felt like somebody had like beat my stomach with a baseball bat. And I remember typing it into the chat, and other people were like, me too. And that was my internal organs healing. So in the mini mod, they said, you weren't going to do any exercise, because then, even if it was just like light exercise that felt good, your body was going to go to repair those muscles when what it needed to repair my reproductive organs. Again, I'm not a doctor, but this was what I read, and it felt true to me, and I could feel it. Like, it was so crazy. But being on that forum, and then I did a lot of other courses. I've always loved community. That's why I think I love running groups myself and kind of sharing on social media. So within a few weeks, it might have been like 3 months actually, that I can't remember, it was 3 months or 3 weeks, I got my period back. And then I got it a few times. So but within 3 months of the whole thing, I'd gotten my period back and I got pregnant. It was tough, but I had support. So my husband, we're not together anymore, but he is a wonderful person, and he was so supportive of me. I was a school psychologist, and so even though I was already at like a normal weight, I gained weight. I gained like 25 pounds, and it didn't matter at all. Like, nobody cared, and that was kind of really cool to see. Um, like literally nothing changed. I know I probably definitely still experienced thin privilege, um, but like it was uncomfortable, definitely. But I felt like I had this like virtual support. My husband supported me. My daughter loved me as much. All the kids that I saw as a school psychologist, like nobody cared, and I got my period back, and it was really cool. My body healed, and then I got pregnant. And I wish I could say it was like smooth sailing ever since then. Um, there was definitely times when I kind of fell back into healthy eating and like a little bit of orthorexia, because my son had digestive issues, and it was like, eliminate this food, eliminate this. But I never fell back in as bad as it was. And where I'm at now is like night and day. I have no orthorexia, zero health anxiety, OCD. Like, I never ever would have thought that I could have this much freedom with food, with my body. When my son was little, so I still, I had, began eating all the food, but then like once he was born, I was like, cool. I kind of fell back into it. Because I it came from love. Like, I want to feed my kids in a way that's going to support their health, mental and physical. And I remember one time we were in Palm Springs, and there was a mom, and there were some other kids there, and she had like non-organic strawberries, and those were, I think, supposed to be like some of the worst non-organic foods. And so my son was eating these strawberries that were also like sitting in this hot tub, and I remember being like, oh my god. And she also had Doritos, and I remember just like, if someone had put sensors on me, I would have been so uncomfortable. But I also felt like it was more important to be social and like I'm not going to be rude and not allow my son to share these strawberries with a new friend. But I wish I didn't know everything I knew. Like, I wish I didn't have my years and years of like paleo obsession. I thought I could never have peace knowing all I know. And now I have so much peace and I still know all of that, but none of that seems that important. I buy organic stuff for my kids and also non organic. I sometimes buy chips from like Thrive Market or Whole Foods, and sometimes I buy a variety pack from Ralph's. Like, it it did take work in the beginning. Like, I would try to intentionally like not look at the back of the packets, and like I never thought I would feel at ease like feeding my kids canola oil, or I don't know, like drinking from like a plastic Gatorade squirt sport bottle. It doesn't seem that important. I balance, just it's like I just live so much more in peace that most of the time my kids eat healthy. But like, to me, mental health and how you're feeling, and if you're feeling at ease, and if your mind's kind of more at a quiet peace, is 100% more important than if every once in a while we enjoy my boyfriend's fried fish tacos, which we fry in canola oil. Or if my son, he brings that, he loves sports, uh, that plastic Gatorade sport bottle that all the kids do. Like, I never would have done that. So I know this was a ramble. Um, And there's much more of my story in terms of anxiety and OCD and everything, but this was a short bit on my experience with hypothalamic amenorrhea, losing my period as a result of orthorexia, an unhealthy obsession with health food, which to me was very much health anxiety OCD. And so at that time when I was really struggling, I looked so healthy on the outside. Like, I'd bring on, I meal prepped for years, years and years and years. I remember hearing about a woman, because I used to also think like weekend camping and like camping in a big RV, or not an RV, a Sprinter van sounded so cool. And this woman would talk about her and her partner would like go out on a Friday and they'd come back Sunday night. And I think, how does anybody do that? Because there's so much meal prepping to be done. I never meal prep, never. After I really got like beyond it kind of just being rote, it was like, I guess 3.5 years ago. Um, I took such a long break from cooking. I've never cooked the same. I can just kind of get back into it, and I like baking now, and I do cook, but like, I mean, God, I cooked for so long. I never meal prep now. I never ever would have thought that I could have as much ease as I do with food now. Like, and I'm so grateful and mindful of it. Like, when I go on vacation, yeah, sure, I bring snacks. I also have diabetes, so that's another story. But like, sure, I'll bring some like protein bars or like peanuts, but I'm fine. I eat so much food, all types of food. Um, I love to share food. Oh my God, before I never wanted to share. I'd always have to order my stuff. Sometimes I used to cut off my eating window really early too, and like, try intermittent fasting. Sometimes I eat dinner at 8, and I eat a pre-dinner before, and then I eat another dinner. So I just hope this video is hope if you have lost your period, that you can get it back, or if you're struggling with orthorexia or health anxiety, OCD, or just anything. Like, I am not the exception. I'm not the exception to the rule. There is literally nothing special about me. Nothing. I am the rule in action. Human beings are amazing. We are built for transformation. We really are. This is not true about me. There is nothing special about me. I mean, there is, because I'm special and I'm cool, but so are you. So just increase your expectations. Recovery is possible. Peace of mind is possible. I never, ever, ever would have thought that I could have as much ease, as much peace of mind, not worry, just like, and my kids are healthy. They have great relationships with food. They have great mental health. My daughter, who, even though I was going through that, right, she's 15, fabulous relationship with food and her body, truly an intuitive eater. Same with my son, who, there was a time when I was postmenopausal, but I wasn't. Got my period back. My son is now 8.5, thriving and healthy, as am I. So I wish you all the best.